The rhythm of healing, the octaves method. O is for observation, through stillness we find meditation and breath work that quiet the mind. In silence we listen, the answers are clear, awareness emerges, dissolving the fear. C is for compassion, for self and for all, embracing the good, the struggles, the fall. With kindness we grow, we nurture, we mend, learning to love ourselves as we extend. T is for therapy, a path we explore. Daily we practice unlocking the door. From journaling to mindfulness, healing begins. Each step is a victory as peace settles in. A is for animals and laughter so bright, like children at a play, their joy taking flight. With playfulness and movement, we rediscover the way to heal through the fun that we often delay. V is for victuals, nourishing and pure, detoxifying the body and keeping us sure. We choose what we eat with intention and grace, fueling our journey at our own pace. E is for exercise, where movement is free. We stretch and we bend in sweet harmony. Flexibility grows with choices we make. In strength and in stillness, our bodies awake. S is for socialize, where self-growth begins. Others reflect our triggers and the places within. Through relationships, our true selves we find, growing and healing with each tie that binds. The octaves method, where all behavior makes sense. We just need to find the sense it presents. We just need to find the sense it presents. We just need to find the sense it presents.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Season 5 of the Trauma and Social Work Podcast. I am KJ Alexander here with my co-host, Tonya Octave, and today we have a lot of important information to dive into. But before we get started, I'm going to go ahead and let Tonya tell a little bit more about herself and what this podcast is about.
Hi, everyone. My name is Tonya Octave, and we are going into Season 5 of Trauma and Social Work Podcasts, where we will be discussing and diving deep into my book called Heal the Mind, 7 Strategies Towards Mental Wellness, Happiness, and Success, Exploring Trauma, Mental Wellness, and Ways to Live a More Balanced Life. And before we begin, just a simple reminder that this podcast is for informational purposes only. It is not intended for medical, psychological, mental health, or legal advice. Although I'm a licensed professional, this is not a formal type of treatment. We may talk about things like hypnosis and meditation and things that we would do in a therapeutic, from a therapeutic perspective, but it's not a form of treatment. For individual questions about your wellness, your happiness, and your success, please seek out a professional. And if you are experiencing a mental health crisis, do call 911 or go to your nearest emergency room.
Great, awesome. That was amazing. So with that being said, I want to make sure I tell the audience, if you haven't already, follow this page on Spotify, YouTube, and any other platforms we post episodes on. Make sure you subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any upcoming episodes in the future. And with that being said, let's go ahead and get started. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the show. This is the Trauma and Social Work Podcast. My name is KJ Alexander, and I'm joined once again with my co-host, Tonya Octave. And we have a very special episode for you guys today. We are going to continue our discussion of the book, Heal Thy Mind. And today we are continuing the discussion on Chapter 5, which covers Victual's nutrition health. And I think this is a very important chapter for a lot of people, especially those who are just starting to go down their nutritional health journey.
Mhm.
So I like to start off by reading the first proverb in the beginning section of the book. So you chose to put this in the book, and it reads, "The body becomes what the foods are, as the spirit becomes what the thoughts are," which is an ancient Egyptian proverb. And the affirmation you put here is, "I make healthy choices. I love veggies and herbs. I eat to detoxify and nourish my mind, body, and spirit." And I think those were a great way to kick this chapter off. It definitely puts the reader in the mindset of what you put in your body is vitally important to health and nutrition. And then the chapter begins with making healthy choices and eating can boost your immune system and stimulate healing in your body and mind. This chapter will explore the benefits of a vegan lifestyle, discuss nutrient filled vegetables, proteins, herbs, fruits, and nuts, suggest foods to avoid, and recommend supplements. So, we know that every person is a little different when it comes to the foods they may like to eat or may not like to eat. And I wonder if we can kind of begin this discussion talking about you personally and your journey. Um, what has this vegan lifestyle done for you personally? And how did you get introduced to this way of eating and diet?
Well, I must say, and for our listening audience, we have three kind of videos going on right now so that if you hear sounds, it might be me in the kitchen. So one of the videos is me in the kitchen making a very delicious salad. You can see some of the creation kind of happening now. And I'm
Yep.
cutting some of these beautiful cucumbers. They are a water
Okay.
filled with lots of water and nutrition. And so if you have dry skin, sometimes I remember as a girl reading Cosmopolitan growing up, and people would, if you have bags under your eyes, put cucumbers over them and that will cure it. So, well, I don't know how real scientific that part was in terms of
Yeah.
the Cosmopolitan, whatever it is, magazine, but they're filled with water. And
Right.
when you eat things filled with water, it makes your skin more plump and more full and more vibrant. So that's what
Yeah.
we're doing here. So for our listening audience, you'll see me in the kitchen, and then you'll hear our voices speaking. And so you kind of inquired a little bit about what my journey was and how I kind of came into a vegan lifestyle. And I wasn't born vegan. Um,
Okay.
I was born to a family, a mom who had more Italian and Irish heritage. And so we had a lot of casseroles growing up. We did have a lot of home cooked food, but we were also poor. So we got government cheese and government butters and all the things that are probably some of the most unhealthy foods. We really, really need to consider the types of food we're giving people who are poor because they're not really healthy. And so that was being born. I was born into that culture of the American um, way of eating, which was filled with a lot of dairy, a lot of carbs, and just really a place to start having a body that will host disease and illness. And so,
Mm.
as a child, I recall two things. One, I used to get in trouble a lot for some reason. I don't know,
Oh,
maybe
really?
oppositional, defiant, disorder, whatever they call it,
Oh,
as a
wow. Find that hard to believe, but okay.
the
Continue.
little rebelliousness in me, right?
Okay.
And I would eat the grass. So
Mm.
around elementary school, probably up until about fifth grade, I would eat grass and I would get in trouble. The teachers kept calling my
Mm.
mom and telling her, we tried to stop her from eating grass at school and they didn't know what it was.
You got in trouble for that. That's interesting.
I would. So there's
Yeah.
interesting tactics your parents do to, like, I've had the hot sauce on the fingers, all kinds
Oh
of
wow.
little tricks along the way, to try to get me. The thing is, when and you'll see this on my website, all behavior makes sense. We just have to find the sense that it makes. And that
Mm.
closed in
Yeah.
on me because as a child I was eating grass. There's a reason why. One, I was probably naturally craving it. Like there
Yeah.
was something about connecting to the earth and the dirt and the soil and having it in my hands and wanting to put it into my body. But remember, I also told you the diet that I was born into. I was nutrient
Right.
dense. When you are
Mm.
poor, you're not getting organic cucumbers and bell peppers and beautiful tomatoes to,
Yeah.
no, you're giving kind of the carbs and the starches, things that can, last for
Processed
a period of
foods.
time, all processed foods.
Yeah.
And I was nutrient deficiency is why I suspect one of the reasons. And plus I was probably connecting and trying to ground to the earth. And
Yeah.
so because of that, there was a negative association with kind of some green stuff, especially growing, if you eat stuff and you don't understand as a child and the teachers are complaining and you're getting in trouble at home and, that's not always, there could be some aversions that occur because of that. And so then
Yeah.
from there, that's when I started kind of realizing that maybe we all have a certain way that we like to eat. And then as I got older, I kind of started experimenting with things. And there would be times where I would be visiting my dad and he would order a pepperoni pizza and I would take the pepperoni off. Or I would go to, like,
Mm.
they would get me a McDonald's and I would take the meat out of the hamburger and eat the bun and the cheese. So this is a
Mm.
child who is clearly seeing something in behavior, but in the family, and also because of also the recommendations of the pediatrician. So there's no blame here. This is all about understanding. Is my
Yeah.
dad would get upset. He'd be like, "Oh, Tonya, why are you doing that? You're not going to get enough protein. You just want to eat the bread and the cheese." Um, and so when I reflect on that, when you ask that, I feel like I was born to eat this. This is my natural way of eating. This is what I've always desired my entire life. This feels comfortable for me. This is what my body has been craving, and I've been nutrient deficient along the path. And so then what usually happens to most of us? If we go to college, we say, oh, we start experimenting with different thoughts, different ways of being. We are exposed to different things. And that's when I went on the true adventure to find out what my body really needed and what my body was craving. And I'll kind
Mm.
of continue to read a little bit from the book because I think that part of the story, my story, is important because I do think that people are able to kind of relate to that in some way. So
Yeah. Sure.
continues. It continues. After my son's father and I separated, I began juggling responsibilities of college, raising my son as a single parent, and I graduated from college and worked different jobs. One was at a forensic facility servicing people with mental illness, addiction issues, and pedophiles. Ah, so I went straight for it. That is just, if you're not wanting to go into adrenal fatigue, that will get you there because that particular population can be challenging. And there's a lot of stress that can go on during that time. And what I want you to see is I'm building a story, but everybody has a story. I'm just using my
Yeah.
story that might be relatable to your story, but we all have a story in this journey. And food from very early on has been a part of my journey.
Okay.
And then it says, with all that stress, I began veering towards a path of unhealthy choices. Ah, stress, unhealthy choices. Can we relate to that a little bit?
Absolutely, for sure.
So I began that junk food. Ooh, and going back to all those wonderful starches and those processed foods and drinking up to a gallon of milk a day.
Oh, and would this be, regular cow's milk,
This red
2%?
cow's milk. I loved.
Okay.
And not only did I love it, one of my memories of my dad, this is how, when we talk about emotional eating, our food is so connected to our parents. And I say this never to blame, because we should never blame our parents. If that's the
Yeah,
case, we have to blame the scientists. We have to blame the marketing industry. We have to blame the pediatricians and the doctors.
everybody. Yeah,
They're
for sure.
recommending this. So
Yeah.
let's be careful. It's kind of like, are we being set up? Are you recommending things to our infants and to our children so by the time they're older, we now have a lifelong client? We've made them sick with their food from birth, and they now will be dependent on us through medication until their later years.
Yep, that would be the issue for sure. Absolutely.
With all that dairy, depression, it got me.
Mm.
Depression set in, and boy, was I struggling. I couldn't get out of bed. My diet fluctuated. I couldn't sleep. And adding to all the anxiety, there were some challenges between my son's father and I during that time, which just adds an additional, relationships can add that additional pressure, that additional stress to it.
Yeah, for sure.
And then it kind of goes on to saying like some of the things that I struggle with. At one point, I weighed 240 pounds.
Mm.
And I would say I was probably at the weight that I weighed the most. I was probably at about 250 was my highest. I had
Mm.
issues with my gut. I was hypoglycemic. I was obese. Sometimes I would faint or get lightheaded. I had these little subtle, what I thought were subtle things kind of building up. The doctors, the doctor says, "Oh, it seems like you're going through a lot of stuff. So let me give you some medication to kind of help you resolve some of these issues." And
Okay.
before I kind of get to that and to try to stay focused on the question, why did I kind of become a vegan? I was born a vegan. And it wasn't until I became an adult and I started to speak my truth without fear, without worry, without ridicule, without being judged, that I started to say, oh, this is my truth. And that's when I started to make a decision about healthier choices, things that I wanted to put in my body. I guess in a way it was,
Mm.
I learned to love myself.
Right.
I don't know if we're taught that. I don't know if we're taught as kids how to love ourselves or to speak our truth, in compassionate ways. What do you think?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that, most kids in today's society, there is a level of conformity to a status quo that we have. And, it's interesting that you said you would get in trouble for, eating grass or whatever green you felt like eating. But now if you go to places like Starbucks and all these coffee shops, have you heard of this drink called matcha?
Mm-hmm.
It's basically like a wheatgrass drink. And so now these companies and corporations are actually commoditizing the whole organic wheatgrass movement. And I think it's just interesting how society has changed recently to move toward, and it's a good thing to move towards more of a health conscious movement. But we're also seeing more corporations take advantage of this as well, and may not necessarily have the best intentions economically. But
What
you
do you
know,
think about that? Like monetizing off of health do you trust it if someone says, oh, you should eat, I think the recommendation is 7 to 8 vegetables a day? Like, do we trust the advice that other people give us? What do you think about that?
Well, here's the thing. So all vegetables are not valued the same. Of course, as you know, you have traditional organic vegetables, and then you have certain vegetables may be grown with GMOs or use certain pesticides that kind of take away from the benefit of eating the vegetable in the first place. So I think it really comes down to where these vegetables ingredients are sourced. And you definitely have to pay attention to the process in which they're grown because there's a very big GMO epidemic right now, and people think that just because you're a vegan or you have a vegetarian diet lifestyle, then that is just the be all end all to have good health. When that is definitely a big part of it.
Yeah.
There's definitely a big part of it, but also you have to have more information as to where the ingredients are sourced, what is right for your body because we're all different, and then also the way society has changed. It's actually more health friendly, so there's more places you can go and purchase products that are labeled as health conscious, but you really have to do your research and deep dive into the ingredients they
And
put in these products. So
you have to read. You mentioned something in terms of when I go to the store, if I go to a store in community, middle to lower class, look at their organic section. Go to stores where
yeah,
they're a different social economic class, look at the food. And that's going to tell you something. I'm going to show you a little bit of a tomato. So this is, let's see if I can do this, the skin of a tomato, which I just peeled off from this, and I just kind of do the skin. This tomato is only a few cells away from the cellular makeup, the animal cell. So they say that plant cells and animal cells are very similar. I think there's 2 to 3 differences that separate them. One theory is when we put pesticides on this, which is on the outside of, let's just use a tomato, when we spray it so that we don't have little bugs or aphids or
yeah,
little kind of crawl in that destroy the fruit that they can have kind of look plump and juicy like that, that it protects the plant. But and that it doesn't get into the skin of the plant. So when you don't buy organic, the theory is when I use pesticides, it's safe.
okay,
I don't know. If there's only a couple of differences in this skin, when I apply lotion and I rub that lotion on my skin, what happens to that lotion? What would
it
happen
gets
if it
absorbed, right?
absorbs?
Yeah,
So why would the pesticides not absorb this? This isn't something that is preventing. It's
hmm,
malleable. You can eat it. So it's going to absorb some of those pesticides. And so I am a big proponent of organic. If you're out and you're eating and you want to get a great salad, but you don't know that it's organic, or it's probably not if you're out here, it's
yeah,
probably not organic unless you're going to a specific place. Once in a while, fine. Take some extra chlorophyll to help the body detox, do some sweating, do some breath work once in a while, okay? Because the body's really, it's a machine. It can do that. But if
yeah,
you're eating vegetables and that's your main source, and then you're talking about not getting organic, it kind of defeats the purpose because you're like continually putting more junk in the body, and we just want the healthy stuff. Actually,
yeah,
soil or dirt, I don't care what you call it, it's actually kind of good for you. Look at me of a kid who used to love it.
yeah,
So even to this day, I kind of still like, I don't eat dirt, grass. So
yeah. No, absolutely,
that's
and
always good.
yeah, I think that
So
the view. Yeah, go ahead.
in terms of young people, when they think about, because there is this movement in some way to want to eat healthier and make healthier choices, what do you think would be the motivation factor for young people to want to take care of their health now versus doing what I did and waiting till I got to a disease state? which is what changed for me is when I got diagnosed with Hashimoto's.
Yeah, for sure. And it looks like your phone camera froze there a little bit, but yeah, I would say for younger people, let's say millennials, Gen Z, for example, um, all we really need to do is just look at the generation that came before us as an example, and maybe as a proverb of what not to be, because I mean, it's no secret that especially in this country, America, we suffer from some very serious health issues, and healthcare is not necessarily the most affordable in this country either. So I think one way we can try to counteract some of the damage we've seen from not only the healthcare industry, but also the pharmaceutical industry is we could try to take some of the responsibility into our own hands and understand that although a change of diet may not be the most comfortable thing at first, it's one of those necessary things that needs to happen in order to not only try to get some health benefits out of this generation, but we had to think about the next generation also, because like you mentioned, a lot of eating habits are passed down from generation to generation. And I'm sure at one point in time, veganism and vegetarianism was more common than it is now. But because of modern society and the commercialization of fast food chains, restaurant chains, things of that nature, people are spending less and less time even in their own kitchens.
Yeah.
So I think it's important that we go back to the ways of living where we start cooking more of our own food, growing more of our own food, learning how to grow and agriculture, things of that nature, because it's the resources are available to anybody. Anybody can start a small farm or small plant vegetable situation,
Mm-hmm.
relatively inexpensive, and I think this generation, the main thing we need to focus on is, do we want to repeat the same mistakes of the generation before us, or do we actually want to improve? And certain issues like mental health and things like that, a lot of these issues can be solved first by starting with the diet, and then we have to pass the information on amongst each other and actually share the information,
Okay.
because I feel like a lot of this information may have been kept secret or gate kept from certain people until it was brought more to the mainstream. And I think that would be a good place to start. Just get the information first, understand what works for you, and then start to apply it into your everyday life.
So it kind of reminded me a little like my story is listening to myself,
Yeah,
child, like the child version of me, and kind of thinking about, well, what is it that my body is really asking for? I, and as I reflect, some of the most stressful times, that I think about in the past, what was I eating? I was like Snickers, Twix, chips, the crunchy, salty things that are just can make it worse in the long run, but in the moment, it seems like it gets you through. Um, and I get that. A part is also recognizing that there are bigger things at play,
yeah, for sure.
um, in terms of how food is talked about and experimented with. And it is an experiment. And it's an experiment in populations that if I tear up, it's not because I'm crying, it's because of the
The
onions and
onions.
my body is doing. So what happens?
Okay.
You cut onions and your eyes start to tear. That means that you need some detoxifying going on. So it's actually a good thing.
Okay.
The food industry, like what really is influencing us? How do you even know if you like a Snickers bar? If I were to eat a Snickers now, I would probably like it. It's not appealing to me. I'd probably get sick just thinking about how toxic it is. Wraps up another episode. I hope today's discussion provided clarity and tools you can use in your daily life. If you're ready to take the next step in the healing journey, I'd love to connect. Head over to my website to schedule a free 15-minute consultation. It is a great opportunity to ask questions and see how we can work together. And while you're there, download my complimentary workbook designed to help you reflect, grow, and move towards mental wellness, happiness, and success. Thanks for listening, and I will see you next time. The rhythm of healing, the octaves method. O is for observation, through stillness we find meditation and breath work that quiet the mind. In silence we listen, the answers are clear, awareness emerges, dissolving the fear. C is for compassion, for self and for all, embracing the good, the struggles, the fall. With kindness we grow, we nurture, we mend, learning to love ourselves as we extend. T is for therapy, a path we explore. Daily we practice unlocking the door. From journaling to mindfulness, healing begins. Each step is a victory as peace settles in. A is for animals and laughter so bright, like children at a play, their joy taking flight. With playfulness and movement, we rediscover the way to heal through the fun that we often delay. V is for victuals, nourishing and pure, detoxifying the body and keeping us sure. We choose what we eat with intention and grace, fueling our journey at our own pace. E is for exercise, where movement is free. We stretch and we bend in sweet harmony. Flexibility grows with choices we make, in strength and in stillness our bodies awake. S is for socialize, where self-growth begins. Others reflect our triggers and the places within. Through relationships, our true selves we find, growing and healing with each tie that binds. The octaves method, where all behavior makes sense. We just need to find the sense it presents. We just need to find the sense it presents. We just need to find the sense it presents.